Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm gonna wait a few more seconds for people to join because I see that people are still coming in. While we're waiting for some more people to join, maybe I can already give you a small heads up that that there's a specific Q&A section that if there are any questions during this short webinar, then you can leave your questions there below and I'll try to answer them at the end of the session. All right. It's 1 minute past 12, so I suggest that we just slowly but surely kick things off. Voilà. So my name is Jens. I'm one of the co-founders of Caromia, and thank you so much for joining us during this webinar. It will be a webinar that will be about 25 minutes, in which I was initially planning on talking mainly about AI and how AI can speed up your ESG reporting process. But given everything that has happened yesterday with Omnibus, I thought it was only right to start off with that and to give you a little breakdown of what's happening there. So without further ado, let me jump in. So the CSRD. So you're all here because somehow you're linked with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive set by Europe. You all want to create your ESG report in line with the CSRD, or you want to, you have to. So then obviously you've heard about Omnibus. Omnibus, and I'm not talking about the Omnibus which is shown here on the screen, which is basically an old vehicle. Some kind of. I'm noticing here that there is a bit of an echo. Is the echo super annoying? Otherwise, if it's super annoying, then tell me. Then I'll try to see if I can change my technical setup here. But otherwise, I'll continue and I will try to speak not too loudly. To mimic. Okay, no echo. All right, cool. But then obviously here, when I talk about Omnibus, I'm not talking about this old horse carriage of a bus. That's where the name actually comes from. But I'm talking about the proposal that was made public yesterday by the European Commission. So what is it? So it's a proposal made by the European Commission that has been in the works for the past few weeks. And that's actually originating from the Draghi report, which was basically a plea to make Europe more competitive. And there were a few things that were highlighted. We definitely noticed a bit of a discrepancy between what was in the Draghi report and now what is actually coming out of the Omnibus proposal. So I think the Commission went a bit above and beyond of what was actually in the Draghi report, but nonetheless, here we are, and here we have an Omnibus proposal. So in short, the simplification package that was proposed, there are three key elements in this. So it's adjustment of thresholds. There's also a change in the scope of what actually needs to be reported on, and there are some delays. And basically within the Omnibus proposal, there's the CBAM, the CSDDD, and the CSRD, which are all considered not on the same level, but basically they're all in scope of the Omnibus. And there's also, especially on the CSDDD and the CSRD, the goal was also to align them more and to align them better, because there is a bit of redundancy and a bit of overlap there as well. But I will not focus too much on the first two. I will focus a lot more on CSRD, because that's also why we're here. So what was in the Omnibus proposal? So there are a couple of key elements, and what I also want to stress is that this is a proposal. I'll come back to this in a bit, and so this is not what the final reality will be, and this is also a proposal that was launched by the Commission. So first off, and they want to change the thresholds of the companies that fall under this directive and that need to report. So there were a couple of indicators that would define if you were eligible under the CSRD. One of them was that having more than 250 employees. Now, this the Commission would like to change and would like to increase this to over 1,000 employees. And so that's an important first element. And that basically also means that a large scope, a large part of the population of companies that initially had to report no longer would have to report. Again, just a proposal. And this is not the final set. Next point is that they want to be more stringent on the value chain data that can be requested. So this needs to be limited to the VSME, so that there can be no other data requests and no other requests floating around within the value chain that go beyond what is in the VSME. They would also like to bring some scope simplifications of the ESRS, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because in the standards there was quite a bit of overlap and it did not always make a lot of sense what was being requested. So I think that would actually help a lot of companies move forward. EU taxonomy that becomes voluntary if you have a turnover which is lower than 450 million. And also the audit, which was also quite, or which is a painful element in the entire CSRD compliance journey. That one will be limited as well, or at least will remain on the limited assurance level only. And so that will not, the assurance level will not increase as is initially set. And then last but not least, what they're also proposing is a delay to submit your CSRD report, especially for the wave 2 and the wave 3 companies. So the wave 2 companies, that's actually the bulk of the audience that has to report on CSRD. So those are the companies that need to report on this fiscal year, next year. And then also the ones that need to report on fiscal year, so basically on the next year in 2027. And there they are proposing to delay this by 2 years. So quite an impactful proposal, actually far-reaching than was initially said, or that was initially spread in the rumors. So, but like I mentioned, it's clearly a proposal, and the Commission went quite far, probably knowing that there will be quite some compromises that will have to be made. Because what are the next steps with this? So it's clearly a proposal. So the next step is that this proposal will go to the European Parliament and will go to the Council. Each of those will define their own internal position on this proposal. So they will formulate an opinion on behalf of the European Parliament, and then the Council will, on their behalf, also formulate an opinion. It is expected that the Council will come to this a bit faster than the European Parliament, and so it will take a bit of time for those two parties to formulate their opinion. And then the next step is that they will all three come together and they will start to negotiate. And this is called the trilogues, and they will actually have to come to a compromise, to a compromis à la Belge, to actually agree on the changes that will happen there. Typically, it's expected that this process will take 6 to 9 months, which is quite long, and that's a long period of uncertainty. And obviously, it creates a bit too much of a stress on all of this, right? Because there are companies that actually need to report on this fiscal year, and so that's why the Commission is hoping that that together with the Parliament and the Council, that they'll be able to accelerate, especially on the last point here on the slide, which is on the delay, that they're able to push this part through much quicker, so that all of that uncertainty is removed from the market, so that that there is not this additional uncertainty on the companies that need to report on this year. And then they've also stipulated that through the delegated act, they would like to publish the scope simplification as well within 6 months. So they're kind of creating a bit of a deadline for themselves in order to clarify those scope simplifications much sooner than would typically be the case. So what now? So if you are currently in your CSRD journey, you are probably in one of the next 3 phases. So what if you're in one of those phases already? Like, what is the most sensible thing to do? Well, if you are currently doing your double materiality assessment, so basically defining your scope, defining your impact, risk, and opportunities, and seeing which ones are material, then my recommendation would be complete your double materiality assessment. Why? Two reasons. Your double materiality assessment will still give you quite some strategic insights. We notice that it helps companies a lot in defining their ESG related priorities. It's also a good way to interact with your stakeholders. So it's a strategic exercise that brings a lot of business value. So go ahead and complete it. Second point is that the Commission, they have established or confirmed that they don't want to touch on the DMA, and that the DMA remains an integral part of the CSRD journey. So so they still see this as an essential starting point within your CSRD compliance journey. So if you're doing your DMA, let's say continue with that one. Then the next phase that we typically see is fit gap assessment. It's an analysis to check if you have the data and if you have the data somewhere. If you're doing this manually, then I would say don't necessarily make this a top priority. Because if you're doing this manually, it will cost you quite a bit on doing this gap assessment, especially with the scope that will then later on change. If you're doing it with AI technologies, and I will give a small demonstration of that in a bit, then in the end, it's not costing you anything. And then obviously, I would say go ahead, right, and do it. But if you're doing this manually, it will cost you quite a bit of time. It's going to eat quite a bit of your budget and time that you can spend on this. Then I would say don't waste your time there at the moment. CSRD reporting itself. And so when you're basically busy writing your report, there clearly you need to factor in that there might be some scope changes. So there, the sensible thing to do is to go the AI, to basically use AI and to make sure that your setup is going to be flexible to then easily adapt to those changes that are coming. So, so I'll be able to give you an example of that as well. But keep in mind that it is essential to go for a structured ESG reporting. And with structured, I mean following one of the EFRAG supported frameworks like the ESRS or the VSME. So what do I mean exactly with that structured ESG reporting? We really see that as a no regret move for several reasons. So it's basically going to structure your stakeholder communication. Like we mentioned before, and like was also mentioned by the Commission in the Omnibus proposal, is that the value chain communication, so the communication with your suppliers and your customers, it will be limited and it will be defined by the VSME as well. And so being the VSME really as kind of the absolute bare minimum, no regret move, and that you can also apply there. Similarly, for banks and financial institutions, they will also be asking you to report on that data, which is also part of the VSME. And that's really to help you and to manage all of those ad hoc data requests. Those that will come in and that will ask you to provide that data, it will always be limited, or it has to be limited to what is then in the VSME. It's also important for your people because it shows that you're engaged. So it shows that you're making work out of this. Creating this more sustainable environment. The third point I also want to stress, and that's that was also communicated by Ursula von der Leyen herself, is that Europe itself is not deviating from its objective of becoming a climate neutral continent. And so, the goal, the long-term goal, that remains. So the path to get there and the immediate deadlines that we have originally seen with the CSRD, they may be a bit more relaxed at this stage, but the goal remains the same. So going for structured ESG reporting remains part of working towards that future objective. And the fourth element, I couldn't resist, but it's also the right thing to do, to report and to measure. To measure is to understand, and what gets measured also gets managed. And so for that, it's always good to do this. All right. Now, let's take a closer look at how we can actually leverage AI in making sure that we are set up in a very robust manner and that we're able to deal with all of the changes that are coming up. So if you look at the challenges that companies face and when you need to report on ESG, it's often seen as a data problem. And because on the one hand, a company has its own way of working, has its certain structure, but all of that is scattered. There's typically no system in place in order to report efficiently and easily on ESRS or on any ESG matters. And then if you look at on the right hand side, and so today ESRS, it's more than 1,000 data points. There's a lot of narratives in there, semi-narratives in there, and few numbers. VSME is going to be around 100 data points. And so ESRS basically on the large end of the high end of the spectrum, VSME on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of data points. But still, it's going to be that challenge of putting all of that into the right format. If you look at the process that it requires in order to do your CSRD reporting, and that's the one that we discussed before, and the double materiality assessment, fit gap, CSRD reporting, that in itself is already quite a lengthy and involved process, and it's not necessarily going to make you super happy, especially if you're doing this manually. So what we set out to do is we wanted to see if we can actually do this better, if we can make this more efficient with AI. And that's actually what we did. And that's also how it really improved and helped our clients so far in becoming compliant with the CSRD. Maybe Ursula von der Leyen should have paid us a little visit at the Winter Circus, then she would have seen that actually it's not so hard to comply with the CSRD, but well, perhaps we're a bit too shy in reaching out to Ursula herself. But in fact, it's actually fairly easy to do this. So double materiality assessment, we can automate this as a process much more efficiently. CSRD reporting as well. I'll give you a small example of that in a bit. The goal and the idea is really that all of that is automated quite efficiently with AI so that your time and your impact can go to having more sustainable impact. Now, clearly, this is not a very traditional process to create a CSRD or an ESG report after all. We're basically moving away from an old school process that is very linear in reaching out to people, having different workflows, to basically going to a knowledge-centered solution that is able to do this for you. And so this is a bit theoretical and it's a bit abstract, But what I'd like to do is show you a little demo of that technology and what that actually means in reality. So bear with me as I will just do this up. And I show you my screen here. Perhaps I will just enlarge this a bit so it becomes easier to read on the screen. So here I want to give you a little example of what AI can do and what AI can accelerate in your ESG reporting process. And that's also what I meant with AI being very efficient in helping you becoming compliant. So here I have a little example of Belfius. So Belfius, you might know, one of Belgium's biggest banks. And what we've done is we've actually taken the annual report of Belfius of 2023. So we've taken that from their website, and actually I have it here. And so that's basically this piece of document, where they talk about quite a number of things. And obviously, it's not a CSRD aligned report clearly, but it's talking about a lot of different things. Some sustainability aspects, like a couple of pages, then HR, etc. But clearly, there is quite a bit of information in this. So what we've done is we've taken this as input, and then we basically asked our system to pre-fill the CSRD report. So to basically report within the structure that is currently set by the ESRS. And what it does is it's going to pre-fill the report. And so if on the left-hand side, and we see that there's the ESRS topics, but then underneath the different disclosure requirements. If we then zoom in a bit more to the center of the screen, then we can actually see the different disclosure requirements then with the data points. And the data points at the most granular level defined currently in the ESRS and the standards set by Europe. And it's those standards that they will likely optimize a bit further. And again, I think that's a good thing because there's quite a bit of overlap in there. But so what the system does, or what AI can actually do for you? Well, in fact, they can actually help you pre-populate all of these data points. How it works is that on the one hand side, the system will look at the regulatory text. What is actually, what is it that we need to report here? And then it will look within the documents that are provided by the system in order to provide an answer to this data point. And here we can see that there was relevant info found in the Belfius annual report, more specifically on page 6 and then on pages 22 to 35. And we can see that there's an answer generated here. And this answer, this is all AI, and this answer is basically giving you all of the information which is required by the ESRS. And so basically this data point is complete. So without any effort, AI is able to pick up on the relevant information and then basically put that into the structure of the reports. And that's basically what we see here. So and this particular data point is basically asking about the structure of the types of employees, non-employees, for example, and we're able to identify that there are internal employees, but there is also non-employees. And so where do we get that information from? Well, basically it's coming here from the report. And if we go to page 6, for example, that was originally mentioned as a source, then we can actually see that staff members here that basically they're already mentioning this and that they're already giving some interesting data points on this. And those data points then are being picked up here by the system saying, okay, these are internal employees, 6,939 individuals and 3,300 professionals. So that's basically how the system will identify and pick up on all of those systems, on all of those facts, and then populate this here. Now, the beauty of this technology is that it's not costing you any effort of filling your report, and this is just a matter of hours. But then if there's any changes to the ESRS, then obviously it's just a few clicks of making that adjustment for the entire report and basically having everything fit into the new structure. And so that's why if you're using AI and if you're using this system or something similar, then basically it will cost you very little efforts of adjusting. So in those cases, I mean, I would say keep going and just get it to the finish line because it actually does not require so much effort. Voila. So that's basically what I wanted to show you here of what AI technology can do, especially in the current landscape with all of the uncertainty of Omnibus. Are there any questions? So I still see that we have a few minutes on the clock. Question from Ruben. That went super fast. If I understand correctly, we will know in August if we need to report in January. Well, yeah, that's a bit the annoying part indeed, but that's where the Commission themselves in the Omnibus proposal have expressed, like reached out to the Council and to the Parliament to hope to come to a decision on that much sooner, so that they can create that clarity much sooner. And I think that would be super helpful because otherwise it's coming a bit too late. Next question. If I understand, the current data points in Coromia are based on the full-blown CSRD reports. We have some customers still need to fill in a lot of the data points. I would advise them to focus on the VSME. Is this indeed the way to go? And is it supported in Coromia? Yes. For us, it does not really matter what kind of format that you want to report. We have clients that today want to report on the full blown, the full shebang of all of the different data points. Most of the clients will basically say, let's not take in any of the optional ones. Let's not take in any of the phased-in data points, but we can even trim it further down to the VSME data points as well, which is basically going to be the no regret move. And so, yes, we also support that reporting framework. Next question I see here. Are there any auditing requirements within the VSME? No, there are not. So because it's also voluntary, so there are no auditing requirements there. And also, as the proposal stands today from Omnibus, there are quite a few customers of ours that I already talked to that even if they don't need to report in line with the CSRD, they will still continue, obviously because there's little effort to it. They will still continue, but then the fact that there's no audit for them anymore, they also see it as a bit of a relief. How do you approach multinationality firms on reporting and regulations related to each reported country? Yeah, it's a very broad question, and it's a bit tough to provide a very accurate and exact answer to this. But the way that I would look at this is look at the different regulations that are applicable and identify already the most stringent one, and basically have that one as your minimum threshold, so to speak. But then there's also a bit of common sense that you can apply and figure out what makes most sense for your customers, for your financial institutions, for your suppliers, which framework to follow. If you're active mainly within Europe, even though that you're in different European countries and they all have adopted the CSRD but there are some differences. I would just focus on the most stringent ones and basically take it from there. And then a comment from Isabel. Yeah, thank you. All right, but it's time passes by quickly. It's already 12:30. well, if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. More than happy to help and see how we can create some consistency in your ESG reporting journeys. Voilà, and please do subscribe to our newsletters. We'll keep you posted. Follow us on the socials. We'll keep you posted on anything Omnibus related. And please let us know if you can help. Wishing you a lovely afternoon. Bye bye.